I want to get my own copy of this just so I can go through and highlight all the funny parts, and I feel like I would have highlighted a good like third of the book. But it's also got some funny parts, and the funny parts are funny. That was such a stupid statement. Of course they are. Hello everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Corin, also known as the Kitten Choreographer, and I'm a teen with a passion for animal rescue and, in particular, kitten rescue. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about books. I talk about kittens a lot on my channel. I love kittens. I have such a passion for kitten rescue and animal rescue in general, but, you know, I do have some other interests. You know, you probably can see that, like, makeup is an interest of mine. I have a big passion for LGBTQ rights and advocating for that, but I also really like to read in my spare time. I am such more of a book fan over like a visual media fan, like TV or movies. I just love books way more. I also do love writing, so you know that goes hand in hand with books. But today I thought I would share with you some of my book recommendations. So these are some of the best books I've read within the past few months. These are the ones I truly stand behind, I truly recommend. I've read more books than this, but I'm not gonna mention any books that I didn't really love, or even if I liked them. These are only books that I like really truly love. The funny thing about that is I don't have any of them here. I use the library more than I use my own copies. I think I have like 9 books in total that are mine. That's mostly because I don't have a bookshelf, so I don't have anywhere to store them, so I don't buy them. But I am going to pop pictures on the screen, and I will probably also be looking up synopses, I think, for these books because I'm not good at explaining. But yes, these books are in the order that I read them. So number 5 is the most recent read, and number 1 is the book that was farthest away from me, because I didn't want to rank them in order of importance because I love all of these books for different reasons. You know, I'm not one that can just say a favorite book because books are so different and there's so many different genres, so these are just 5 books. Well, technically they're 8 books, but one of them is a trilogy and I just put them in one slot. But yes, I've been talking for forever and I'm just gonna go ahead and get into it. Wait, one more thing. So a lot of these books have queer characters in them, and that's just because I love reading books with queer characters because I am queer, and it's really nice to see characters that I can relate to in that way. Of course, I don't only focus on that, and 2 of the slots are unrelated, even though they're both affirming to queer people. I just wanted to note that you obviously don't have to be queer or part of the LGBTQ community to read them. Queer people have been enjoying straight literature for a very long time, so straight people can definitely enjoy queer literature too. But I will point that out as we get to it. But yes, now we're getting into the video. So the first book recommendation I have is Cinderella is Dead. This is a very important book to me because it was the book that really reignited my love for reading. I was such a bookworm in elementary and middle school. I was reading all the time. I'd burn through books like crazy, you know, was constantly at the library, and then I kind of just stopped. In 9th and 10th grade, I really didn't read much, and I think that was just because I was really busy, but I also didn't really know where to get good books. Because I would go to the public library and pluck books off the shelves, and they weren't really that interesting to me. I've found a new method of finding books, mostly through Book Talk on TikTok. I get a lot of good recommendations there, and also I have a Goodreads account now that recommends more books based on the ones I like. So I have a better method of finding books I like, but this book was truly amazing. I'm gonna look at the synopsis now so I don't tell you anything misleading because it has been a few months since I read it. Okay, so this book is written by Kaylin Bayron. I haven't read any of her other works, but I'm definitely interested because this book is truly amazing. I read it in less than 24 hours. I probably would have read all of these books that quickly if I could, but it just comes to like how busy am I, and I really don't have that much time to read all the time. It is 200 years after Cinderella found her prince, but the fairy tale is over. Teen girls are now required to appear at the annual ball where the men of the kingdom select wives based on a girl's display of finery. If a suitable match is not found, the girls not chosen are never heard from again. 16-year-old Sophia would much rather marry Aaron, her childhood best friend, than parade in front of suitors. At the ball, Sophia makes the desperate decision to flee and finds herself hiding in Cinderella's mausoleum. There, she meets Constance, the last known descendant of Cinderella and her stepsisters. Together, they vow to bring down the king once and for all, and in the process, they learn there's more to Cinderella's story than they ever knew. This fresh take on a classic story will make readers question the tales they've been told and root for girls to break down the constructs of the world around them. So yeah, this book is totally amazing. You can tell from the description the main character is gay, and it's great. It's a great book. I love it so much, so I definitely recommend that story, and that is one I would love. All of these books I would love to have physical copies of, I just don't have them. Okay, so this next series is written by Marissa Meyer, who is the author of the Lunar Chronicles, which I do really like, but I have not read those since 6th grade, so they're not the ones that are on the recommendations list, but I do really like this author, and like I would recommend them, but I literally haven't read them in years. But this series that I'm mentioning today is the Renegades Trilogy. So this is the one that is grouped in one spot, but it's 3 books. I recommend them all because they're a series, and they're good. I read this in like a week, I think. 3 books, I'm not sure, don't quite remember. I will read the synopsis of the first book now. So, the Renegades are a syndicate of prodigies, humans with extraordinary abilities who emerged from the ruins of a crumbled society and established peace and order where chaos reigned. As champions of justice, they remain a symbol of hope and courage to everyone, except the villains they once overthrew. Nova has a reason to hate the Renegades, and she is on a mission for vengeance. As she gets closer to her target, she meets Adrian, a renegade boy who believes in justice, and in Nova. But Nova's allegiance is to a villain who has the power to end them both. So yeah, this is the one with like a main straight romance, and I think it's fine. Romance novels aren't always my thing, so I probably wouldn't be that interested if it was just a romance novel. I'm definitely more of a fantasy, sci-fi person. I guess I should have explained that at the beginning, but it has to be a really good realistic fiction book for me to love it, which is funny because there's 2 on this list. My philosophy is that I don't want to read about real world problems because they're too close to my problems a lot of the time. That's why I like fantasy problems that don't exist, which is funny because I have friends that are literally the exact opposite. So that's just my personal preference. But yes, this series is amazing. And what I love is though even the main characters are straight, there's a lot of LGBTQ validation in this book. One of the main characters has 2 dads, and those dads happen to be like main superheroes. Like they're really cool guys, and so I really like that. I'm definitely a big fan of this series. It was just twists and turns. I will say one thing. The epilogue is, it's awful. It's awful. I don't like the epilogue. However, the 3 books, like the actual content, it's amazing. So that is one thing I will say. But the actual story is, it's incredible. It just had me on my toes. I love so many of the characters. It's great. Yes, so that's number 2, but it's technically 3 books because it's a trilogy. So this is the only book on this list that is nonfiction. I'm not a big nonfiction reader. I'm not a big memoir reader, but this is a nonfiction memoir by a person that I really look up to. So this memoir is written by Evanna Lynch, who is probably best well known for her character as Luna Lovegood in the Harry Potter movies. She just seems like such a nice person. You watch me because you love kittens, probably, so you should be happy to hear that Evanna is a huge animal activist. She's also a vegan, so win-win, you know, we got a cool influential person on our animal rescue side. This book is amazing. Most of these books had me crying at some point or another because I cry a lot, so pretty much every good book will make me cry, whether it's sad tears, happy tears, I cry a lot. But this book is probably the most influential book I've ever read, and that's saying a lot. I've read a lot of books, but this book just hits so deep. So I am going to read this. I'm going to give a content warning until this timestamp. This timestamp if you don't want to hear about the talk of EDs and disordered eating. But now I'm going to read the description. A searing memoir from Harry Potter star and activist Evanna Lynch about the bravery it takes to embrace ourselves and our dreams while navigating the battle between perfection and creativity. Evanna Lynch has long been viewed as a role model for people recovering from disordered eating. Here, I'm not sure if I can say the actual word on YouTube without getting demonetized. As the story of her casting as Luna Lovegood in the Harry Potter films grew to almost mythic proportions. A tale of how she faced disordered eating as a young girl, found solace in a beloved book series, and several years later landed the part of her favorite character. But that is not the whole story. Even after recovery, there remains a conflict at the very core of her being, a bitter struggle between the familiar why can I not read this? Anesthetizing. Well, I look dumb. I don't know. I know what it means. I just can't say it. Pursuit of perfection and the desire to fully and fearlessly embrace her creativity. In her book, Evanna confronts all the complexities and contradictions within herself and reveals how she began to conquer her self-hate while facing her fear of leaving the neatness and safety of girlhood for the unpredictable journey of being a woman. Revealing a startlingly accomplished voice. I agree with that part so much. She is a genius writer. Her writing is amazing. She needs to write more books because her writing is so powerful. She's got such a powerful voice. She speaks so eloquently. But back to this. Ivana delves into the very heart of a woman's relationship with her own body. Unwilling to let the darkness of her ED eclipse her dreams, Ivana explores the pivotal moments and choices in her life that led her down the path of creativity. Taking the reader through her personal journey, she reveals how by channeling her fears of the messy, uncharted future into joyful, ambitious endeavors, she reaches towards acceptance of the wild, sensual, and unpredictable reality of womanhood. Honest, electrifying, and inspiring, this is a story of the tragedy and the glory of growing up, of mourning girlhood, and stepping into the unknown, and how that act of courage is the most liberating thing a woman can do. This book is truly so powerful. Even if you haven't struggled with what she's struggled with, I struggled with mental health things, even though it was not her specific thing, and it's still so powerful. I relate to it so much, and it's just truly so empowering to see someone with such a big voice and a big platform talk so honestly, rawly, and openly about struggles. So I cried probably through a good half of this book. And I'm like choking up now because this book was so impactful for me. Like truly, it's really good. You should read it. But it's definitely really hard and uncomfortable at times to read, but I think it's worth it. It really makes you confront so many things and it's so great. But yeah, I'm gonna move on from that one and let's talk to 2 realistic fiction books, which like I said is weird that 3 of these are not fantasy. So weird because I am definitely more of a fantasy and sci-fi person. I just guess that's not the books that have been catching my eye recently. I have read a couple and they just weren't the best, which is not why they're not included on this list. They weren't awful, they just weren't the best. So the next one is Red, White, and Royal Blue. This is a pretty popular one and I can totally see why. It's great. So I don't know how to describe it without reading the synopsis that we're about to read. First son, Alex Claremont Diaz, is the closest thing to a prince on this side of the Atlantic. With his intrepid sister and the Veep's genius granddaughter, they're the White House trio, a beautiful millennial marketing strategy for his mother, President Ellen Claremont. So this basically takes place in a world where Trump never became president and instead a woman did. So automatically gets a thumbs up from me, you know. International socialite duties do have downsides, namely when photos of a confrontation with his longtime nemesis, Prince Harry, at a royal wedding leak to the tabloids and threaten American-British relations. This isn't really a spoiler, but it wasn't a confrontation. They destroyed something that was tens of thousands of dollars. There was big secondhand crisis there when I read that. Anyway, the plan for damage control, staging a fake friendship between the first son and the prince. As President Claremont kicks off her re-election bid, Alex finds himself hurtling into a secret relationship with Henry that could derail the campaign and upend 2 nations. What is worth the sacrifice? How do you do all the good you can do? And most importantly, how will history remember you? This book is great. So it's got the gay main characters, it's a gay romance, and straight people can like it too. I have several straight friends that really liked it too, which is cool. But this is so good. I read this right after the opposite of Butterfly Hunting, and it was just a complete switch, and I really liked the fact that I read this book after because that book was so deep. And while this book definitely has some heavy parts to it, it's not nearly as heavy as that, you know, and it's funny. The characters are so lovable and funny. Like, I would love to be friends with like a good most of the like characters that the main character likes and the main character himself. It's just a whole great situation. I just love this book. I was like laughing, and I want to get my own copy of this just so I can go through and highlight all the funny parts, and I feel like I would have highlighted a good like third of the book because it's just so funny, it's so great, it's so heartwarming, I love it. It's such a good book. Oh, before I move on to the next book, Red, White, and Royal Blue was written by Casey McKeeston. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I'm sorry if I'm not. Oh, I forgot a book. Oh, I was positive I was gonna put that on, but I forgot a book. I'm glad I didn't because this book is amazing. So before we talk about the one I was going to talk about, we're going to talk about the one I read before that because it was great as well. And this one's not realistic fiction. This one, so I messed up the count, sorry, but oh well. I still want to talk about this. So this book is Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. This book is great. So it has a trans main character and he is so cool. It's like okay, I'm just gonna read the description because this book is so hard to describe. I'm just not good at describing books, so that's why I'm just reading the synopsis. Yadriel has summoned a ghost, and now he can't get rid of him. When his traditional Latinx family has problems accepting his gender, Yadriel becomes determined to prove himself a real brujo. The brujo in their culture is like a guy's role of like helping protect spirits, so he really wants to be a brujo. Because he is, you know. With the help of his cousin and best friend Maritza, that's one person, it's worded a bit weirdly, Maritza is his cousin and also his best friend. He performs the ritual himself and then sets out to find the ghost of his murdered cousin and set it free. However, the ghost he summons is actually Julian Diaz, the school's resident bad boy, and Julian is not about to go quietly into death. He's determined to find out what happened and tie up some loose ends before he leaves. Left with no choice, Yadriel agrees to help Julian so they can both get what they want. But the longer Yadriel speaks with Julian, the less he wants him to leave. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing Julian wrong. He's from a Latinx community, so I'm trying to pronounce it like they would pronounce it in a Latinx community. I don't know if it's pronounced the more American way, Julian. Sorry, not sure. But this book is great. Like I said, it has a trans main character who really wants to prove himself. It delves into such a big thing. It's like a murder mystery mixed with fantasy, has some modern day elements because it's set in a modern day fantasy community. It's so cool. It's such a great book. I was crying so much at the end because the ending is really great. So I'm so glad I didn't forget to mention that, even though I almost did, because that would have been so sad because this book is truly... It's amazing. It's really good. It's really funny too. It's another one. It's got some not funny parts because it's also kind of deep, but it's also got some funny parts and the funny parts are funny. That was such a stupid statement. Of course they are. Anyways, now we have one more book, and this is the most recent one I read. So this book is called Felix Ever After, and this is by Kaysen Calendar, and I finished this one today. I do technically have the book, but I don't have the cover on it because I got it from the local Pride library from the Pride Center in my town. So they take off the covers, and I was like, I'm not gonna bring it in here if it doesn't have the cover, so I'm just gonna pop a picture of the actual cover art. This book is great. It also has a trans character, and what I love about this book is because he's trans, but he still questions his identity, and I relate to that so much because I originally came out as gender fluid and then thought I was trans masc, and now I settle on non-binary. So even if someone knows they're trans, there's still some process to finding the right label for you if you even want to have a label. Felix Love has never been in love, and yes, he's painfully aware of the irony. He desperately wants to know what it's like and why it seems so easy for everyone but him to find someone. What's worse is that even though he is proud of his identity, Felix also fears he is one marginalization too many. Black, queer, and transgender, to even get his own happily ever after. When an anonymous student began sending him transphobic messages after publicly posting Felix's dead name alongside images of him before he transitioned, Felix comes up with a plan for revenge. What he didn't count on, his catfish scenario landing him in a quasi-love triangle. But as he navigates his complicated feelings, Felix begins a journey of questioning and self-discovery that helps redefine his most important relationship, how he feels about himself. Felix Ever After is an honest and layered story about identity, falling in love, and recognizing the love you deserve. Oh, also I'm gonna link all of the books I'm talking about down below because they're all really good. And I'm reading all the descriptions from Goodreads. So this book is great. Content warning for transphobia. I have experienced transphobia. I read it. It wasn't too bad because the main character has more support than not support. It's mostly just one person being super transphobic, and I really like the book. It definitely took me through some twists and turns, and it's a really good book. It took me like a couple chapters to get into it. It's probably the only one on this list that I didn't love right off the bat, but once I got into it past that like basic character development stage, it was amazing. So yes, that is all the books I have to talk about. I guess there's one website I'd like to recommend. The website Does the Dog Die is great because I have anxiety over characters I really like getting hurt. That website is really good for me to kind of check. If you don't know what that website is, basically it was created to warn you about content in books. It's called Does the Dog Die because it shares like, do any animals die in this? Do like people, other content warning topics that it teaches you about and just like lets you be prepared for that. So I really like that as someone that has anxiety and gets really attached to my characters because of my anxiety and has a really hard time when characters I really like are hurt. So yes, that is this video. I hope you liked it. Thank you so much for watching. If you did like it, make sure to like this video and subscribe for more kitten related and sometimes other related content. I upload on Sundays and on Wednesdays if I can, and if I can't, then I upload whenever I want to. Also, please make sure to leave any thoughts or questions that you have down in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching again, and goodbye!